Hello, it's Rachel Wells. Welcome to Work 2.0, the podcast. I'm your host, and I'm delighted to invite you to this weekly briefing on the future of work, AI, money, and careers. Today, we're going to be talking about freedom of work and what this means as the new future of work as we explore freelancing, as we explore making money independently. I have a guest on the call with me. His name is Derrick. He's a millionaire already and at such a young age, and he's a freelance attorney. So, Derrick, welcome on the show. I'm delighted to have you with us.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. You're welcome. So, I want to explore your journey. I know there's a lot of people who are listening around the world who want to cross their first million. I know briefly when we spoke just before, you were saying it took you some time to get there, but thank God you're here.
Yeah.
So, just give us a bit of background about who you are, what you do, which actually enabled you to cross the 1 million mark as a freelancer.
Yeah, for sure. I'm Derrick Morgan. I'm a 34-year-old trademark attorney. I'm based in Mexico City, in between Dallas, Texas. But essentially, I have a full service trademark law firm that offers A to Z services in trademark law.
Awesome, amazing. And how long did it take you to cross the 1 million mark?
Through Fiverr or in general?
Well, just in general, because your business is not just Fiverr.
Yeah. So crossing 1 million, I think it was like maybe the fourth year or the third, like middle of the third year going into the fourth. So
Wow.
right now we're on year five. So about a year and a half ago.
Amazing. Wow, that's incredible. It's incredible. So, when it comes to the legal world, the legal industry, a lot of people know it for prestige and corner offices
Yeah.
and all that stuff. But you've built, and obviously a lot of it is rigid as well when it comes to you're working long hours, late into the night. But you've built a lifestyle in the
Mhm.
legal profession where you've experienced flexibility. You're living in Mexico City, you're living your dream life. Tell me, like, how did you build that flexible work model while carrying the heavy workload of working in the law profession?
Yeah, good question. So initially when I was doing traditional law, at first I was in the office, but it was hybrid. There weren't any requirements for me to come in the office X amount of days. So I always started off in this career with a very flexible setup. Um, my boss moved to Canada maybe I think 6 months into my job. And I'm like, well, if you're in Canada, why do I need to be in Indianapolis? He's like, you don't. I'm like, oh, okay. Well, I
Okay.
did not know that. So fast forward, a few months, I was figuring out where do I want to go. I really like global cities. I really value the diversity of thought, people, et cetera, that, global cities bring. So Chicago is 3 hours from Indianapolis, which is where I'm originally from.
Right.
And I shot to Chicago, and that was in about 2019, the very beginning of 2019. So that's where I planted my roots initially,
Mm.
while my firm was in Indianapolis. But we did a lot of federal law, so I had to travel anyway for work a lot of the times.
Okay.
So this is all before COVID. Um, but once COVID happened, everything went fully remote. There's no reason to
Yes.
be. You can't go to the courthouses during COVID because everything
Of
was shut
course.
down.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think between my job already being flexible and COVID, everything just kind of went fully remote. And then with everything being fully remote, it's easy to just kind of travel and be wherever you want to be, while still
Mm.
maintaining work. So I think COVID really changed everything for a lot of people, and that's kind of how I
Yes.
got started with just having this location-free mindset with work.
Wow, that's awesome. Do you feel like now that I'm assuming you're fully working remotely, right? Do
Yes,
you feel
yes.
like with your lifestyle, people in your industry, like maybe your ex-coworkers, are they a bit jealous of you? Like, or do they look down on your work model as like, oh, you're being lazy?
Yeah, I mean, I think initially, yes.
There is that stigma, yeah.
Yeah, they were well, so even when I was at the traditional law firm and I was doing full remote work, people were just like, "You're not in office? Do you even work?" Like, because I'd be at the
Wow.
gym at noon, or I just had the freedom and flexibility, the autonomy to kind of just do whatever I wanted, whenever I wanted, as long as
Mm.
the work got done. My boss was never, like a micromanager or anything like that. So
Oh,
I
that's
think
good.
initially, yeah, people were kind of like, oh, looking down on it, making snide remarks. But as people started seeing that it was working, um, they started getting curious. They're like, oh, okay, well, I didn't know that lawyers could, have this much flexibility. So
Yeah,
then it kind of changed from those snide remarks to a genuine curiosity, especially with like millennials and Gen Z attorneys,
for sure.
who just kind of want to also have that flexibility. So I think initially yes, but it shifted to I'm curious. Now it's like teach me how.
Yeah, how do you do it? Right, for
Yeah.
sure, for sure. And I think you at your age is so important because there's Gen Zers who are entering the legal
Hmm.
profession, who are entering the industry, and hopefully they're looking up to you and they're seeing, wow, if you can do it, then it's possible to actually maintain a healthy work-life balance, even while in such a tight, fast-paced industry as in the legal profession. So that's awesome. I'm really happy
Yeah.
for you. Now you've got a background as an athlete. So, and I know
Yes.
that when it comes to being an athlete, you've got to train yourself to be disciplined and have systems in place. So, with your background as a student athlete, how do you feel that kind of shaped your career now when it comes to building your business? I know there's a lot of transferable skills and
Yeah.
lessons that you can learn from that.
Yeah, it's funny you say that. My life would be completely different if I was never an athlete.
Mm,
It influenced where I went to school, who I met, experiences that I had overseas in the US, etc. So I would live a different life if I never ran track. So initially, I ran track at Florida A&M in Tallahassee, Florida. Then I
okay,
transferred to Indiana University, which is where I'm from.
right.
So yeah, competing at that level, it really taught me how to manage pressure, time, performance,
Mm,
skills that directly translated into building my legal business. So with track, especially in those off seasons, you're forced to show up and deliver when no one's watching,
yeah.
um, no one's clapping for you. So that's the exact mindset that you need as an entrepreneur.
Oh, yeah.
Um, and a lot of times, people are doubting you. So you're doing a lot of work in the dark, and that's the same thing with track. Um, Although people think of track and field as an individual sport, it very much so is a team sport, at least at the university level.
Oh,
um
okay.
yeah, so also I was in a different city every single weekend, as a student athlete during our season. So we're in 20 different cities a season, and that really translated over into my practice because I'm having to manage time management, getting my work done, but doing it
Mm,
at a high level with not a whole lot of time. So it's
wow.
kind of just like been ingrained in me of having that remote lifestyle where I'm having to deliver high quality work while being on the road. So
Mm,
it's really helped me go far with that. And one more thing, funny thing you say that, I saw an interview recently with Ryan Coogler, I think his
yeah.
name is, the
Hmm.
director of Black Panther, Sinners, and whatnot.
Mm,
And he talked about how being like a student athlete gave him the ability to outwork anyone that he comes into contact with. I'm not saying
mm,
like I'm the hardest worker, but I do work hard. I do think I'm in, like one of the top
yeah,
percentiles of hard workers.
for sure.
So there's just something that is ingrained with you from being an athlete. It gives you that edge, that
For sure.
instinct to go the extra mile and whatnot.
I totally agree. You're actually the second runner that I've
Mhm.
interviewed today. The lady I was interviewing before, who's a CEO of the university, she's a long distance runner. And I share that as well. I used to do long distance running. I did a half marathon. So there's something about that
Okay.
mental tenacity. I don't do it anymore, but I
Yeah.
need to get back into it. There's something about that mental tenacity that you build when you're running and your
Absolutely.
brain is like mind over matter and you got to keep going. And so often you're the only voice talking to yourself,
Yeah.
encouraging yourself, motivating yourself. Like you said, it is a team sport that you're doing, but at the same time, there are elements where it's just you and your thoughts. And I know
Yeah.
you have that a lot as an entrepreneur, and then you've got to speak over those voices of doubt and keep going. So that's awesome. So what I'm curious to know is, you said obviously the pandemic is what set off your business, going
Yes.
from working in a law firm to actually setting up your own practice.
Mhm.
Now, obviously, working remotely, that part was easy at the time. But
Yeah.
how did you make I know we didn't discuss this in the questions earlier, but I like to kind of inject this in for our listeners who might be thinking, how did you go from working in a law firm to setting up your own practice? Did you have clients straight away? I mean, how easy or how hard was it?
It was actually pretty hard. So I was doing sports law at the firm that I was at. Sports law, some civil rights stuff as well.
Okay.
But I was in-house counsel for USA Badminton. Quite
Okay.
random, but we weren't doing a whole lot of intellectual property. I think maybe one or two issues came across my desk that were intellectual property related.
Okay.
So I didn't have any clients in that space. In law school, I did study intellectual property. That was my focus. So a lot of my internships before I went to the firm were rooted in intellectual property law.
Mm.
So I had the knowledge, didn't have the clients just because it wasn't what I was doing. So once the court shut down during COVID, I was earning on contingency. So basically, if you win $100,000 for your client, that's when you get paid. You don't get paid for hourly work. You don't get a salary. You only
Wow.
get paid when your client wins. Yeah,
I
it's
see.
kind of a scary model, but
Yeah.
it worked out until it didn't with COVID. Um, so fast forward, I'm starting my business because the courts are shut down and I can't litigate. There's nothing for us to do. So my cousin was starting a business at the time and she's just begging me, can you please do this trademark? Finally, after like the fourth time she asked, I'm like, sure, I'll do it for you. So I was like, okay, that wasn't that bad. I remember how to do all this. I studied this in school.
Right.
So then I put the services on Fiverr. Um, Early on, I was
Oh.
doing like contract law and some IP work. It was a bit more general, but then the intellectual property side, the trademark law side, really took off. And I think in like the first month, I made about. Actually, I think the first month was like $1,000. The second month was 5,000. It's a bit
Wow.
hazy now.
Wow.
Yeah, and then by the 6 month mark, I was clearing about 10 grand a month just doing trademark law, and I had just gotten back into it.
Aren't you thankful that your cousin begged you to help her? Because you
Yeah,
wouldn't be where
yeah.
you are now, right?
Right, right.
That
It
is
really changed the
crazy.
trajectory of my career for sure.
Wow, that is awesome. So now just segueing, you mentioned Fiverr. Now,
Mhm.
a lot of freelancers on platforms such as Fiverr, and you even think about Upwork, because it's a freelance marketplace, and now with the popularity, sorry, of freelancing, it becomes like a saturated market because everyone's
Yes, for
kind of
sure.
vying for the same clients. And then you struggle to maintain sustainability and you struggle
Mhm.
to attract premium rates and premium clients. And everyone's undercutting their prices because
Yeah.
they're scared of losing to another person. What did you do differently? Because I'm sure you don't struggle with that to the extent that others do. So what did you do differently on Fiverr, which is a very much saturated freelance marketplace, which enables you to kind of turn your legal practice into something that's sustainably bringing in a consistent amount of revenue each month?
Yeah, good question. So yeah, most people on freelancing platforms, they'll race to the bottom on price. They
Mm,
want to be not the cheapest, but the most affordable.
yes.
But sometimes it can turn into not the best quality of work. So while my prices were significantly lower when I started,
Mm,
I positioned myself as a premium provider from day one. I have the credentials, I had the sharp communication, fast turnaround, airtight
right.
legal advice. But people on freelance sites aren't really worried about your credentials. They just want to see if you can do the work and if you have had good experiences with other clients in the past.
Mm,
They say repetition is the mother of skill. So they want to
yes.
see that you have those good reviews. So I was just making sure that, every client, I wasn't treating them like a small time business owner. I was treating them like this is Apple. I'm going to deliver my best service to these people. They're going to give me good reviews, and then once you start getting reviews, it just kind of snowballs.
Oh
So you
yeah,
get
for
you
sure.
get one review, you get five reviews, you get 10. All these people are saying how good your
Mm,
services are, and then it just kind of picks up from that.
yeah.
So I think a happy customer is, some of the best marketing that you can do because they're going to refer
Mm,
you to their other friends. They're going to leave a good review, and that's how a lot of people were finding me initially because they just saw my reviews and I wasn't
yes.
crazily priced, but still offering a premium service.
Oh yeah, we need to coin that, right? A
Yeah.
happy customer is the best marketing. You're right. I can relate because when I started in 2019, when I started my business just before the pandemic,
Yeah.
I started on a freelance marketplace, not Fiverr, not Upwork, but it was another one which is
Okay.
actually now obsolete. But or they've been merged into another company. But that
Mhm.
marketplace, when I started, I had no experience. But what my best marketing was the reviews. I gathered a ton of reviews, of five
Yeah.
star reviews, and that became my marketing. People would go there, see my reviews, and like without question, pay whatever I asked them to pay. So
Yeah.
I think that's really important for our listeners to understand that you can start even with minimal experience as a freelancer because you didn't freelance before, but you
Mhm.
can be in a saturated, crowded marketplace with minimal business experience and yet still be able to charge premium rates as long as you focus on the customer and ensuring they have an optimal experience. That's just so powerful. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, no problem at
Um,
all.
So, we do hear a lot of hype about work from anywhere lifestyles, especially since the pandemic, and remote work is a huge thing. It's at the top of Google searches all the time. And everyone wants to live that independent work from anywhere lifestyle, which you're living right now. What do you think is, obviously, when people see it, they see it on Instagram and it looks really glamorous. They see all the pictures and everything. But from your perspective, you're in Mexico City at the moment. What do you think is the hardest part of being location independent? Like, what's the less glamorous side that people don't see?
Um, One of the hardest things I'd say is certainly isolation in a sense, and that's not about having coworkers because I don't mind working alone. I'm used to it, and I probably prefer it at times, but
Mm,
you just don't have the support system. You can't go to your colleague to ask for, a question, how do you do this? How do you do that? You don't have mentors. Now,
right.
obviously you can
Yeah.
build that community, but it's a lot harder when they're not built in. So I think that's one of the harder parts. Now you can
Oh,
go
yeah.
to a co-working space and meet a lot of like-minded people, but are they working in your industry? Usually they're not,
Mm,
especially as a lawyer. Um, so yeah, not really having that built-in community of other lawyers and people that you can lean on that have similar experiences to you, that can be pretty hard. And another thing that I struggle with a lot is FOMO. Are you familiar with the
oh,
term FOMO?
fear of missing out.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So a lot of times I'm in cool places. I might be in Bali, I might be in Thailand, I might be on the coast in Mexico.
Mm.
But when I'm in those places, everyone else is on vacation mode. I still have to get in
Oh,
my 8 to 10 hours a day of work,
wow.
and they're at the beach. They're like, come to the beach. You
And
have
you
to
can't
really
join
be,
them at the beach
yeah,
because you're
yeah.
working.
I mean, at times, like I have the flexibility, so I can go during the day, but I'm going to have to make up those hours on the back end.
Yeah.
So that
Mm.
FOMO really can kick in when you're in
Oh,
a
yeah.
fun place and everyone is just
Yes.
wanting to have fun. And that's one of the
Mm.
hardest parts of having location independence with
Mm.
work, is just trying to stay completely consistent, completely disciplined, no matter where you
Yeah.
are, and staying on top of your kind of regiment, no matter where you are. It can be hard.
Yeah, I can relate to that. Right now, I'm a digital nomad, and
Yeah,
like just before this call, like you saw me trying to shift things around because the sun was getting too hot outside.
yeah,
There's a lot of adaptation that you got to, think on the spot, and the distraction. Yeah, you're right. There is that FOMO because you get beautiful scenery or things that you want to activities and events or things happening around you that you want to engage in, and you've got to weigh
absolutely.
up. Well, I'm actually at work at the moment. I'm not on vacation, so it's hard to be out of vacation mode when you're in a vacation spot,
Yeah,
right?
you're right.
So that FOMO is definitely real. But thankfully, because you had that discipline as a student athlete, I'm sure that definitely transferred into what you're doing now. That
One.
determination, that consistency. This is work. And
Yeah.
do you find that you sometimes, I think you alluded to this, but just for clarity, do you find that you sometimes structure your schedule so that you can enjoy what surrounds you? While you're, for example, in Mexico and Bali, do you structure your schedule around events sometimes or around things that are happening so you can enjoy the scenery?
At times, it depends where I'm at. I
Mm-hmm.
still, no matter where I am, I still try to work. Like, let's say I'm in Japan, I will still try to work from 9 to 5 or 6
Mm,
on their time zone and
of
just kind of
course.
have a normal day. Now, if there's, let's say I'm in Mexico and there's a national holiday and everyone's doing X on this day, I
Mm,
might, sneak out for a few hours, but at the end of the day, I'll have to come back and put those
right.
same hours that I
Of
missed
course.
on the back
Mm,
end. So sometimes, but I tend to try to stick to a traditional 9 to 5 or 6,
right.
and really focus on that.
Cool. So you recently hired a paralegal. Now that I think is kind of unheard of for a freelancer to be able to
Mhm.
hire someone because a lot of freelancers are struggling or just about making it, or they're in a position where they don't want to hire anyone because they want to keep most of the money. But you were able to hire a paralegal recently, which is a huge success. So congrats to you as a sort of practitioner. How did you know? What I'm curious to know is how did you know when it was the time to expand and to say, I'm going to delegate, I'm going to hire someone to help me take on this load?
Yeah, so recently I watch a lot of Shark Tank, and I
Mhm.
take a lot of, I feel like I have an MBA just from watching Shark Tank.
Yes.
And actually, one of my friends also said this quote. I think it's from Barbara on Shark Tank, but if you're too busy, your rates are just too low. Now, of course, you want to stay accessible, affordable, but at a certain point you have to raise your prices or you're just going to go crazy trying to do everything at the same rate. So that gym really kind of resonated with me, and I was like, yeah, everyone wants to hire me. I think I just need to raise my rates just a little bit, not too much. Don't make it, like I said, don't make it unaffordable, but just raise them a bit and
Nothing
gradually
wild and
scale.
crazy.
Right, right,
Yeah.
right. So once I hired my paralegal, so I actually hired her, I think like 2 years ago. And when I
Okay.
hired her, I want to say my business doubled the next year.
Wow. Seriously. So it's like you feel like you're losing a bit of your freedom, like your control, but actually you're releasing it so you can take on more.
Right,
And you hiring her, which obviously ate into your profits, actually doubled your revenue.
right.
That's
So
crazy.
learning and mastering the art of letting go and delegating can
Mm,
really take you a lot further. They say if you want to go fast, go alone, but if you want to go far, go together. And
yes.
when I brought in my paralegal and we were doing this together, yeah, profits doubled. Um, I couldn't imagine life without her. Um, it would just be like she does a lot of the things that take a lot of time, but they're not necessarily difficult. Does that
Mm,
make sense? A lot of
yes,
the,
yes.
a lot of the admin work that, it might take me 30 minutes to do. But in that same 30 minutes, I can be speaking to a new client and she can be working on the back end. So we're a pretty good dynamic duo, but
It's
yeah,
good.
she's really helped.
That's good. And it's funny, I was listening to recently to a podcast by Stephen Bartlett when he was interviewing Daniel Priestley. Actually, on the flight here, I was listening to it, and he was saying, well, both him and Daniel Priestley were saying that, a team is so important. Like, you can't go far,
Yeah.
you can't be truly successful as an entrepreneur without a team because they make you like multiply your impact so
Yeah.
much.
Yeah.
So I 100%
100%.
agree. Are you thinking, looking forward to the future? Can you see yourself hiring more people? Or are you just happy with how things are at the moment?
Yeah, so I was recently on national TV kind of about the same similar situation about my business and whatnot. And I've had a lot of people reach out asking if I need more help, if I need attorneys, if I need paralegals.
I can
And
imagine.
I do think I need one more staff member. Hiring is
Right.
hard because you want to get the right fit.
Of
So I,
course.
I certainly think in the future, the near future, that I would be open to bringing on another paralegal or potentially even another attorney who has their own book of business.
Mm,
Because again, like if you want to go far, go together. And I think
right.
that might be the next step.
Final two questions for you is this. Number one, as a freelancer, what would be your advice to another freelancer when they're looking to hire, to make their first hire? They're ready to let go, as you said, and delegate, and they're ready to triple or multiply their income. First of all, part one of the question is, should they hire like a contractor, like in a freelance set, or should they hire from like an employee stance? Which one is easier? Which one is the best option? That's the first part. Think you're muted.
Yeah, so great question. Advice to another freelancer who's looking to scale. Um, I'd say you really need to be clear about the person that you're looking for and then just kind of reverse engineer. So
Okay.
if you need a person with X, Y, and Z skill sets, you can't compromise on the skill sets that you're looking for. I know a lot of people are just kind of desperate for help and looking for someone to do anything, but I think
Mm,
you really need to be specific on what you're looking for and finding the person that is that perfect fit. Otherwise, you're going to be upset about this person not performing up to the standards that you have. So being specific
yes.
about what you want and actually finding that person and not settling, which segues into your second point of should they hire a contractor or an employee. I think it's best to hire other freelancers and contractors because you don't have to commit too early. You can use 4 or 5 of them, see who fits and works with you the best.
Right.
And then once you have that good match, you can keep giving them more work. And then eventually, it can turn into them being a full-time employee. But I think once you see who's your best match, then you can make it into a more serious relationship. Um, so yeah, I
Mm.
think that's my answer on that one.
Yeah, that makes a lot more sense. Yeah, I think it's definitely the flexibility of being able to hire another freelancer. At least you're not committing too early, and you can easily say, okay, this is not a good fit, without having to go through all the HR headache
Right.
surrounding that. Yeah, for sure, for sure. And just last but not least, what's your advice to other professionals entering the legal industry who maybe one day dream of having their own multi-million law firm? What would you advise them?
Yeah, don't be myopic with the practice of law. So when
Mhm.
I graduated law school, I wasn't actually at the graduation. I was in South Africa because the flights were cheaper at that time than they were later in the summer. So I skipped graduation, but you know how they do like senior superlatives. The
Mm.
senior superlative or 3L superlative, whatever you want to call it, I was voted for was least likely to practice law. And at first I was like, I don't really
Wow.
know what that means. I'm a bit offended, but it's because I was always the think outside of the box kind of guy. When I went to law school, I wanted to be an athletics director, and maybe
Yeah,
one day my career will take me back to that. However,
right.
I was always very flexible in how I thought about how one could use their law degree. I knew I never wanted to go into big law, so I wasn't doing moot court and law review and the things that a lot of other law students are doing to show to potential employers that they can be a good lawyer. I was doing the soft skills. I was meeting people. I was meeting people that had law degrees that weren't necessarily practicing law. I
Mm,
was doing the 360 view of it all.
interesting.
So I think just don't be myopic of what you can do with a law degree, because there's a lot of jobs that having a law degree and being a practicing attorney can really benefit the profession. So
Mm,
just don't be nearsighted. Keep your mind open, and meet with a lot of people while you're in law school or as a young attorney who have potential careers that you think you'd be interested in, and network with them.
right.
And just see what's out there. They might, even if that person is not a fit, even if that career is not the one that you want, you can talk to them because they might know someone who's doing what you want, and it can open a lot of doors.
Right, right. Well, thank you so much, Derek. This has been an amazing interview, very insightful. And I hope our listeners can take away a lot from it as well when it comes to just consistency, the whole idea, the concept of letting go and knowing when to delegate. I think that's powerful. And also what you mentioned earlier about how having all these five-star reviews and
Yeah.
your customers are your best marketing, really, really. And we both can relate to that because that's what really led you eventually to making more than $1 million, dollars. And I'm sure in the next few years or so, when I interview you again, you'll probably be a billionaire. Who knows? But at the rate you're going, just keep at it. And thank you so much for sharing your inspiring story on this podcast. For those of you who are listening, if you are concerned or feeling anxious or worried about the future of work and careers, money, AI, all of that stuff, you don't need to be anxious because the future of work is right here on Work 2.0. You can listen on all streaming platforms, Apple, Spotify, you name it. So, what I need you to do is give this particular episode a rating, give it a thumbs up, like, share it, comment, share it with your coworkers, share on Slack, share on Teams, share it with your friends, and feel free to download it. And I will see you in the next episode.